there seems to be a rise in poor student behavior post-pandemic.
Mm.
What is the cause of that, do you think? Good grief, I got beat up in the cafeteria this year. I don't want to call it a pandemic, but I do want to refer to it as an epidemic of student violence towards teachers. Now, so that everybody understands, whenever we talk about student violence, this is what we mean by student violence. That is what we're talking about. I know that was just a very short clip, but that happened because that particular teacher or para confiscated an electronic device from that student, and he beat her almost to death. She has permanent life-altering injuries as a result of that, and it's unfortunate that it didn't show more, because he didn't just push her down and hit her. He got on top of her and he wailed on her and wailed on her and wailed on her. That kid's 6'8", 250 or 300 pounds, and that lady's, $120 in her mid-50s. She had no way to defend herself. When we talk about student violence, that's what we're talking about. And that's what 71% of teachers say they've experienced. 60% of teachers say that they feel afraid of physical violence at school. 63% want to quit because of it. So my question is, one of the things that is often said is that the reason why this is happening is because there's no consequences at school nowadays. I hear this all the time. Well, when they took the paddle out of school, that's when kids begin to act up, or, they need to do this or they need to do that. Is there really a connection there between a lack of consequences at school and school violence, or maybe is the culprit found somewhere else?
Well, again, I'm going to go back to consequences, and it just kind of dawned on me. When did it become the school's responsibility only to provide consequences? And again,
That's right.
I think that's one of the biggest problems with today is it's a very us and them. Like, I send them to school, you need to teach them.
You needed a round of applause because you said it. That's right.
And it's your responsibility to give the consequences. Well, no, because I know when we were growing up that it didn't matter what they did at school. I was worried about what was going to happen when I got home, if anything ever happened. So I think, again, there's a very big disconnect between the connection that needs to exist between home and school. When I started doing this 25 plus years ago, it was very much, especially in the world of autism. I was there in the beginning, so to speak, way down in Broward, but we worked together. Hey, what's going on at home? What's going on at school? How can we figure out how to make these two worlds work together? But we've really gotten away from that. And again, that pandemic, you would have thought that, okay, now parents, you see what we're going through, so let's fix it. And instead it was like the opposite happened. It was like, nope, hey, they're yours again. I don't want to get involved. You need to fix it. You need to tell them. And then when you do provide the consequences, well, not to my kid. You better not do that to my kid. You better not say that. So it's this very strange place we're in right now. And we have got to get back to working together. And it's something we can control-ish, in the sense of maybe also providing our expectations to parents of, if we want these behaviors to get better, we definitely have to work together.
Absolutely got to work together. I just, what you were talking about right there, one of the things that I find, well, there's two from parents. About 80% of the phone calls that I take, I will explain what just happened, what their kid did, what's going on. And the very first thing that comes out of their mouth about 80% of the time is, well, my kid has ADHD. And I want to respond to that quite often. I want to say, well, no, they have BAD. Okay, they're bad. Okay, they're behaving poorly. It's not really ADHD. But the second thing that's happening today is, well, that teacher had no right to say this, or they didn't have a right to do that. And I can remember whenever I was a kid, the people that lived next to me, they apparently had the right to hit me, the grown-ups. They apparently had the right to do some things to me that today I would probably land you in jail. And that is exactly, I think, the crux of the problem. It's not a lack of consequences at school, although there could be greater consequences, but there are some constrictions. The real problem, I think, and you can, somebody out there in the middle of America that's watching this thing, let me know. But I think it is a lack of parental support. It's the fact that a kid can act up, be disrespectful, disrupt, and their parents will not only defend them, they will validate them into saying that they're right. I can remember an issue that happened one time. This kid, he went off the rails. It's been, some time ago. He went off the rails. He was all over the campus. He was disrupting the entire place. We had to call the parents. The parents didn't want to answer the phone. They finally answered the phone, and lo and behold, they show up in the front office. They got it on Facebook Live, the whole 9 yards, about how we mistreat their kid, about how we do this and how we do that. And here's this kid terrorizing an entire campus, chasing kids across the campus, trying to enter rooms that he's not supposed to enter so that he can try to have a fight. And yet they show up on Facebook Live and we are the problem. Well, clearly I can see how they made the connection, but that's what I think the problem is. What do you think, Doc?
Well, and again, it's accepting responsibility for our actions. And we are in a society that doesn't like to do that. It's all about the blame game, right?
Yes.
And all about the payout from the blame game. Who can I blame and who can I profit from? So it's really interesting to watch how people. I had a principal once, and I love this saying, your parents are your friends till they're not. And it's unfortunate, but that's kind of the society we're living in right now. Like, we want to get along. We want to be team. We want to, but it's just this very contentious kind of interactions sometimes. So it's unfortunate, and I'm hopeful. Again, I'm a hopeless optimist. So I'm hopeful that we can at least move back. I know with some teachers, and again, sometimes that's it too, if they hear things about teachers, and if one teacher's really respected, they won't do that with her, but they might with a different one. But yeah, I really think we need to watch our expectations, and sometimes I think we need to raise them a little bit. I think we lowered them for a really long time. And we need to teach people how to treat us. And if somebody's going to come into an office and scream at me, I'm not having a conversation. I'll wait till everybody calms down, and then we'll move forward.
I'm not going to talk to them. They can call, they can scream. If they start screaming and yelling on the phone, I'm going to hang up. John asked a question right here, and I'll answer it right quick. I'll put it up there. Schools, at least in Florida, cannot block cell service. That is an issue that we've talked about, and it is apparently against the law. It's also against the law to, at least in Florida, to prevent a student from being able to bring their cell phone to school. The only thing that we have the authority to do is say you cannot use it from certain periods of time to certain periods of time. And if you do, we're going to confiscate it. But I even run into trouble with that because, the students and parents will say, you're not doing that. That is my property. That is my property. You do not have the right to take my property. And so from my perspective, when that happens, I don't engage in an argument. All I do is just escalate the discipline. So, for instance, at our school, if you get caught with a cell phone, the first time offenses, we're going to take it away and give it back to you at the end of the day. The second time, we're going to take it, make your parents come pick it up and give you ISS. If you refuse to give it to me, I'm just going to send you home. That's just what I'm going to do. Not everybody does it that way, but that's what I'm going to do. And that's as far as we can really go on cell phones today. So, here's the thing. What about administrative hesitancy to remove dangerous, disruptive students from the classroom? What is their holdup, you think?
Well, it's tough. Everybody's hands are tied. Everyone wants to, I have heard about lawyers contacting parents trying to get lawsuits against schools. And they have no idea, like, for no reason. They don't even know anything that's going on. Down south one time, we had a gentleman who all of a sudden showed up in our parking lot and just started taking pictures. And he didn't even have any kids, let alone students at our school. A lot of people are looking for that payout. So I know a lot of administrators are very hesitant because they're worried about the litigious side of things. And, is it
Yeah.
going to be a lawsuit? And am I going to have to sit through due process? And there's a lot going on right now. And I really feel that teachers, administrators, and staff are like kind of caught in the middle between like families and society and school boards and all these things. And it's like they're getting tugged in so many different directions. So that's why when I do work with any teacher, I really, really want them to understand what they can control and then to work on their own coping strategies. Like,
Yes.
I want to make sure that they are emotionally regulated and they are taking care of themselves, because in a nutshell, nobody else is going to do it for them.
Well,
So
that's a good lead into our talk about teachers. Is how is this uptick in student violence, how is it affecting teachers, and how is it increasing the burnout rate amongst teachers? What do you think's going on right there?
I think a lot of teachers are in a situation where they feel like they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. Okay. So, no matter what I do, I'm going to get zapped. And whether it's something that's quote unquote right or something that's quote unquote wrong. So, and it can be this foggy depression that they fall into. It can be a numbness that happens. It can be anxiety. And it can also manifest itself in different health concerns, especially when it's women and thyroids. So there's a lot of different, it's amazing. Go to a school and ask how many are on levothyroxine. You'd be amazed. But we're really burning our bodies out. And it's super, super important to protect our mental health and to protect our own wellness. And I just think that teaching has been so selfless for so long. And I'm not saying we need to turn into selfish, but we just need to shift the focus a little bit and make sure we're taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, I don't think that we need to become selfish at all, but here's one of the things that I do know is that chronic fear creates hypervigilance, and hypervigilance creates emotional exhaustion. And so for everybody that's out there that's listening right now, if you're a teacher, write down in the description box here. There's all types of free resources there. It's a reclaim your limits on boundary setting, a 5-minute reset. We want you to go get those. Those are 100% free and they're 100% for you. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, we want you to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Doc, tell them what your channel is. She's brand new. This is her first time on YouTube. And so we brought her on to talk about these things and to give her channel a jump start.
Super stoked. It's all about solutions. It's actually Doc Pinder's all about solutions. And that's exactly what we need to all be looking for. What are the solutions? It's one thing to talk about the problems. And yes, we could sit here and quote stats and really look at all the problems, but what are some of the solutions? And that's what I love to work with people on. I love to work with kids, parents, teachers, admins, school directors, etc., and just really work together on coming up with those solutions and empowering people again. I really feel that a lot of the times we get numb to situations and we don't realize how much it's just harming us. So it's really, really important to, one, start talking about it, become aware of it, but then also move to not only just, and this isn't excusing things, it's explaining things so we can move forward. Okay, what are we going to do differently so that tomorrow or these next 3 weeks, right? So we have, 12 days and 3 half days. So these next 3 weeks, what are we going to do differently to end 2025 and take us into 2026 more successfully? Whether it's personal, whether it's classroom, whatever it might be, in order to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, which is going to impact student behavior in our classrooms.
Absolutely, it is. So what are, maybe 1 or 2 boundaries that a teacher could put in place right here? I just think off the top of my head, first of all, I think that if a teacher has a disruptive, potentially violent student in their classroom, that somehow they have to find the courage to go and talk to their administration and say, look, you have to do something about this. Beyond that, what boundaries could a teacher put in place that would help them right here?
Well, I think a really successful strategy, and especially when you just brought that up, is data. One of the most powerful things I ever used to use when showing how student behavior was impacting a classroom or a school was the amount of personnel that was needed to assist with that behavior, or the amount of time in a class period that student was off task, disruptive, etc. Numbers speak volumes. So if I can say at a meeting with everybody around the table that in an hour period, so-and-so either made a noise, threw an object, whatever, I would define it, but 33 times, I mean, that's a lot. That's impacting that class. So again, I think sometimes what I want to encourage teachers and staff is have data, have some numbers, because it speaks more than he's just misbehaving, he's causing problems, he's disrupting my class. You can show that, and then also just be able to have that conversation with your admin. And if you don't feel comfortable, who do you feel comfortable with on campus that you can connect with in order to be able to have those conversations?
I think most teachers are really afraid to have those conversations, but I don't think that they should be. And here's the reason why, is because there's not exactly a line outside the door waiting to take your job. Let that sink in for just a minute for all of America's teachers. It's not like there's a dozen people lined up outside of every school in America just waiting for you to get fed up and walk out the door. There's really, I think I read the other day, there's like 857,000 teacher vacancies in America. Mm-hmm. That is a gigantic number. I don't know how many teachers there are in total, but to have 850,000 vacancies is incredible. So I think that we want teachers to understand that they can do something. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we talked about in some of our other content here recently is Abby Warner, who's a teacher in Virginia whose first grade student brought a weapon to school and ended up shooting her in the hand and then through the chest. And it's very interesting because everybody made a report. Everybody had something to say. Everybody thought this kid had a weapon, but no one would go open the bag and look inside the bag and see. Mm-hmm. And it is amazing to me that Abby did not feel empowered to do that. Mm-hmm. And here's what I want every teacher to hear. You need to feel empowered. If your safety is on the line, then you need to be willing to protect yourself regardless of what the actual outcomes are. Because that is exactly what can happen in 21st America classroom today. A 6-year-old kid can have a weapon at school and he can shoot his teacher. Mm-hmm. It happened. That's a real deal. So I'm wondering, Doc, is there a spiritual component to some of the things that we see happening today? I'm reminded of what the proverb says. It says a lack of discipline breeds chaos. So what is the spiritual implications of what we're seeing today?
Well, I think the key word there is definitely discipline. We're not seeing discipline not only with kids, but also with adults. There's a lot of encouragement. Do whatever you want, regardless of the outcome. Say whatever you want. It doesn't really matter, which brings me back to consequences. But we get into this free-for-all of sorts. And when we don't have that discipline, it shows. And here we are. So I really think it's definitely something it does have a spiritual component. I think that's even where boundaries come in and where protecting our personal mental health and wellness comes in, to take those spiritual breaks, so to speak, being able to disconnect from that classroom, even if it's for 2 to 3 minutes, whether it's going for a walk in the halls, whether it's just not looking at your emails for a minute. One of the biggest things I tell teachers all the time is turn off your email on your phone. Nobody deserves 24-hour access to you. No job. Your kids do and your family, whatever, but no job I mean, are they paying you millions upon millions upon millions? And even if they are, I highly doubt those people even have 24-hour access.
I
So
doubt they do.
it's really reclaiming your spiritual side and being able to have that peace that's inside that I think again we go numb to. We just get into that survivor mode. We're constantly either in fight or flight trying to get out of the
Yes.
situation or constantly fighting it. I fought for years. I was taking
Mm.
everybody on and it nearly killed me.
Yeah, I have absolutely been in your shoes.
Mhm.
A couple of resources that we have down in the description box is you were talking about just getting a real quick reset, even if it's 5 minutes of walk down the hallways. We have our 5-minute reset guide right down in the description box. It's free. It's 100% free, and it's always free. It's specifically for teachers. And I don't know. Maybe you're listening on Spotify or Apple, so it's down in the show notes. Also, Dr. Pinder's links are all down there so that you can catch up with her and keep on top of what's going on there with her. Also is the Reclaim Your Limits. That's the best guide that we have. It's about boundary setting and how it just kind of works you through the process of setting some personal and professional and spiritual boundaries. And the number one thing that I did after an entire year of being completely burned out, my face went crooked and sideways, the whole 9 yards. The number one thing I did is 2 weeks before school, I walked in and I set out some boundaries with my administration. I have never looked back on those. I have never crossed the line. They have never crossed the line. And I have never, ever, ever felt better as a teacher than the day that I set actual boundaries. So we want to encourage you to do that. There's a great impact happening in the classroom, because I find that when there is one student that acts up and acts a fool, before long you have 2 or 3 students acting up and acting a fool, and a teacher completely loses control of the classroom. What can a teacher who otherwise has good classroom management, what can they do?
So I would highly encourage, hopefully, talking to the school counselor and being able maybe to sit down with that student, like connect with them. I think a lot of the times, and even kind of what you were talking about when it comes to teachers talking to administrators, we create these situations in our mind that really don't exist. So that also happens with students and teachers. I don't know if this has ever happened, and I know it's happened to others, but like you go to the store and one of your students sees you. It usually happens a lot with the younger ones, but I've had it happen with the older ones too. And they're like shocked that you exist outside of school. It's like, yes, I don't sleep there. I don't, that's not my home. Like I do have a life outside of here. But it's kind of bringing that human aspect to it and letting them know that you're human too. And we need to figure this out, because and that's usually the conversation I'll start with is, guys, we have 10 months together to figure that, and let's get this done now so that we're not beating our heads against the wall for 10 months.
100.
So what can we do? And sometimes, again, it takes that connection with those students. And listen, think of it this way. What training did they have to get them to that state of mind, to where either that they're that angry, they're that explosive, they're that sad, they're that scared? Like, what happened in their life that brought them there? And then let's take my experience, your experience, teacher's experience, and bring it together and create a new narrative to move forward.
So one of the things that came along today that you and I looked at, I'm going to pull it up right here, is this little thing right here from Brad Johnson. Listen to what he says. We don't have a classroom management problem. We have a youth mental health crisis that teachers are being asked to handle. Somehow classroom management has turned into de-escalating trauma, supporting anxiety and depression, calming panic attacks, being the counselor, social worker, and crisis team, carrying emotional loads that no one sees. Teachers aren't trained for that. They shouldn't have to be that. Classroom management is about relationships, structures, routines, and connections. It was never meant to replace a national mental health system. And don't we just feel like that's exactly what we're being asked to do as teachers?
Yes.
Is be mental health care providers.
And as you've heard me say many, many times, I started in the school system almost 28 years ago as a mental health counselor, and my position was phased out within the first year and a half, just gone. And then for the next 5 years ish, there weren't really mental health counseling positions in the schools. So I've been a behavior specialist. I've been a lot with ESE. So I've been an autism coach. So I had to do other things while still being a licensed mental health counselor on the outside of school, but bringing some of those strategies in to work with parents, to work with teachers, to work with students. And finally, unfortunately, it took the pandemic. It took all the violence going on in schools, but we're finally funding mental health again and bringing these things back in order to try to calm the chaos. It's going to take a while because the mound is just so high. Like, we can only take a little bit off at a time, but I'm hopeful that we can make some strides and make some impact school-wide. And again, this is not putting blame on teacher at all. I am thankful that we finally have the resources to help the teachers in their classroom. And that's the first thing I say. Look, I am here to help you. I'm here to help the kiddo, but I'm also here to help you in your classroom. So
Absolutely.
What can we do again together? We got to make those connections. We got to have that team in order to try to right the wrongs, because there's a lot of things that have gone wrong over the last 5 years.
They sure have. Doc, as we just try to land the plane right here, what is, if you could speak to every teacher in America, if everybody was watching this, what would you say to try to encourage them in this moment? Because again, it's 71% of teachers say that they have experienced student violence. What would you say to them in this moment?
You're not alone. There are many resources available, and there's many people that want to help you. And I'm definitely one. I am ready to help you do something different so that you don't have to be afraid at work, so that you can love teaching again, and so that you can have that peace and establish those boundaries so that you can move forward.
100%. Teachers, you got to hear that. You are not alone. I know you're not alone because, good grief, I got beat up in the cafeteria this year. It is a real thing. You're not alone. There are other people in the world that understand exactly what you're going through. As a matter of fact, that is the whole mission of Teacher Talk. That is the whole mission of what Dr. Pinder's doing, is we exist to help you and to support you and to empower you. And so what I want to say to you is a couple of things. Number one, don't blame yourself. All right. We are in a system that is as broken as a plate that has fallen from the top shelf. Right. And there's not a single thing that we can really do about that. We can advocate, we can push for policy and this and that and the other. But the truth of the matter is that the legislatures, they are fully in charge of how things are going to go in public education. And all we can do is learn to work within the system. The second thing is, I want to reaffirm this, is that your safety is not optional. It's not optional. It's not something that somebody can bargain with. It's not something that somebody can say, well, we need to find a way to work with this kid. So don't be afraid to raise the level if you have to. Number 3, set boundaries. All right. The job is tough enough at school. You don't have to bring the job home. At some point, we have to stop allowing the chaos at school to invade our home. And when we bring that work home, as Doc says, if we bring those emails home and we're on call seemingly 24 hours a day, our brain never gets the opportunity to reset. Exactly. And it stays in fight or flight mode. And we are fighting 100% of the time, 10 months out of the year. That is PTSD level. And that's what teachers are experiencing. Don't fall into these traps. But more than that, if you're interested in boundaries or anything like that, you can go right there to the top because YouTube wants you to watch that video, or you can push right there in the middle of the screen. Actually, I don't think you can push the screen, but it wants you to subscribe to Teacher Talk and get on board with what we're doing. But more than that, what we want you to do is we want you to stay strong and keep teaching.